So Iran is pushing to expand its control over the Strait of Hormuz. But who's really in charge, and what does it actually look like in black and white if you're in this region? First off, we point out the orange areas. Why would I do that? Because this is where Iran has military presence, and this is what we're going to have to fix if we want to open up the Strait of Hormuz by force. They say we have military strikes here, ability here, therefore we'll control all of this. So what does it look like, and why does Oman have a role? Well, Iran says, hey, Oman, you can control one half, we'll control the other half, and that's this whole pink area. The U.S. made it clear, Oman, you're supposed to be an ally. Make a choice or else you're going to be in trouble. This is not going to stand. And how have they been enforcing the strait? First off, they got a presence. These are merchant ships. They're unarmed. So, of course, they're going to go abide by what the ships say that are somewhat armed. So a lot of them in this so-called mosquito navy. They have the ability to disrupt by saying there's mines in the water, or they have drones that go overhead. Meanwhile, how are they doing this? They actually made up an authority, like a toll on a bridge, and they're charging people on international waters. That can't stand anywhere, anyhow, because the precedent would be really bad. And finally, no Israel, no U.S. are going to be allowed through as of right now. That's got to change. Now President Trump's addressing the possibility of future military action in Iran. Watch.
Is there a line that they would cross for you to go on the offensive again militarily?
Well, a deal that wasn't going to be good for us is the line, ultimately, because, you know, I'm playing it out and we're going to see, and that's what I do. I negotiate. They negotiate. They're very good negotiators. They're crafty. But in the end, we have all the cards.
This comes as sources say negotiators have reached an agreement on a 60-day window to extend the ceasefire and launch nuclear negotiations. There are reports that the deal tackles the Strait of Hormuz, enriched uranium, and sanctions against Tehran. Let's bring in retired four-star general, Fox News senior strategic analyst and chairman of the Institute of Study of War, General Jack Keane. General, the president hasn't signed off on these deal points, which is an extension of the ceasefire. But what do you think about it?
Yeah, well, let's first of all, I think when you look at it, we've got to remind ourselves, you know, who are the Iranians here? And certainly the administration is very clear-eyed in who they are. In fact, I spoke to one of the negotiators earlier this week for a lengthy conversation, and there's no doubt in my mind that he's very clear-eyed in what we're dealing with here. What did we see after the 12-day war last June? The thing that got our attention and alarmed us is how they recommitted to all of their original goals. Recover nuclear program, ballistic missile acceleration, continued support for the proxies. All of that was going on. And the degree that it was going on, particularly with ballistic missiles, precipitated and was the basic reason for why we have this combined operation against the Iranians this year, beginning back in February. And we've got further evidence. So my point is, it's unlikely they're going to change. No matter what deal we put together, at the end of it, they're going to want to recover everything that they're losing and go back to their original goals. So in the deal, and our negotiators understand this, we've got to have the provisions in there to prevent as much of that as possible from happening. The second thing is, we know they're going to cheat. Look at this. Right now, what's taking place just this week alone with the violation of the ceasefire in the Straits of Hormuz. Who's doing that? The Iranians are doing that. And we had to react to it. Look what they've done in Lebanon. The ceasefire began on April the 8th. And since April the 8th, less than 2 months, they have fired rockets and missiles into northern Israel over 900 times. 1,200 plus drones have been fired into northern Israel, all since April the 8th. And that is under the guise of a ceasefire. And the Israelis are in a defensive crouch because they're abiding by the terms of the deal, which is they can only conduct defensive operations. I point this out because it reminds us who we really are dealing with here. They are likely to want to cheat. Now, we've got good leverage points here. Number one, the blockade ourselves. That'll get us the Straits of Hormuz open, and I'm assuming the president is looking at the text and seeing what's in there, and I'll get back to that in a second. And the other leverage point is the money. We have the money. We have their frozen assets and we have sanctions. So we can meter that out based on how their behavior is changing and what their level of commitment is. And then the thing that you mentioned, and the president mentioned also last night in the interview, we can go back to military operations. Where the Iranians are, they want to stretch these negotiations out as long as possible because then they think in their minds it's less likely the president go back into military operations. But they have miscalculated about this president before, and that's dangerous on this part, and they would likely do that again here. When it gets to the straits that you're talking about here, Brian, I think there's some issues that are likely we want to see in the text, and that may be what's delaying. And I don't know. I don't want to speculate about the text, but I think what we know the issues are. Iran has to demine, and that probably is going to take a few weeks to do that. Why? Because they don't know where all the mines are that they put down. So that has to happen. But the southern lane is open because we opened it, and traffic will begin to flow right through there. So there'll be some relief immediately, but it'll take some time before it's all relieved. Number two, and you mentioned it, there can be no fees. There are not going to be any tolls, fees, or whatever you want to describe it. None whatsoever. And the third thing, I think the administration is certainly very much aware of this. We cannot leave Iran with the implication that they're in control of it. And what do I mean by that? Well, because they're organizing when and who is going to move through the straits. That's control. That's got to be off the books. They have their hands off of it. This is international waters, freedom of navigation. They don't have a say in any of it. Then there's the nuclear enrichment. We want all of it out of there, regardless of the percentage. That's a fact. And that's got to happen, and that's the president's main objective, for sure. And that's the reality of it. And certainly there are other things that are going to take place here. And the money is going to be an issue for sure. Iran's going to want money up front because of goodwill, and we're going to say no. We want to see what your behavior is like, and we're going to meter the money to you. I suspect those are the issues that we're dealing with in trying to get an agreement on this draft document.
Yeah, a couple of things. We could just dissolve in the deal points while I talk. But the last one I want to point to, Israel and Hezbollah war has to come to an end in Lebanon. It's not going to happen unless they decide that they will not fund the proxies. Because you can't ask Iran to watch Hezbollah rearm and not, Israel to watch Hezbollah rearm and not do anything. They're not going to do that. And my problem is, too, who's speaking for Iran? They have their deputy secretary come out and say Iran's assets will be returned in full for us to agree to any deal. Not going to happen. And they have their head of the parliament come out and say we will maintain our right to enrich uranium. So if you're President Trump, you have to say to yourself, who am I dealing with and why are they saying this? So, General, I know you're going to be all over this, working this on all angles. Thanks so much.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.